Hello, and welcome to Here We Are, the mindful podcast for millennials, where it's all about remembering where we've been, knowing where we're going, and taking up space in the present through the art of storytelling. I'm your host, Teka, and I'll tie together the practice of presence and life lessons with faith and mental health nuggets too. Whether sharing my own experiences or featuring a special guest, I hope to inspire you to take control of your story and take control of your life. I hope you receive what you need from today's episode. And remember to check out the show notes in the description for links that I reference. Ready? Let's journey. Alrighty, everybody. So another episode of the podcast and another very special guest, my sister friend, Shaina. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you, Shaina, for answering the call or, being willing to be on the podcast. How are you?
Absolutely. You're welcome. And I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's Saturday. It's kind of rainy outside, but it's still a good day. So I have known Shaina for a very long time. And I know you well, but the audience, the listeners, the watchers, they don't. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Shaina?
Thank you, Teka. So I just claim Charlottesville and Richmond as both of my hometowns. So I say I'm a Charlottesville/Richmond native. Of course, I went to college and started my career in the Hampton Roads area. So I spent a decade of my life there. I kind of consider myself an honorary 757 lover.
Okay.
But right now I am enjoying being a mom. First and foremost, I have two children. They're Irish twins, so they are very, very close in age. They keep me on my toes. I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying being around family. Some career shifts I'll get into later. And I'm a very colorful, growing creative right now. I'm trying to get into my creative side because I spent a lot of time on my analytical side. So that's a little bit about me.
Yes. You are an amazing mother. And I like how you said colorful, because I feel like I see your posts and of course your outfits. Y'all, when I met Shaina in college, the first thing I noticed is that she had a lot of clothes. Okay. Shaina you had a clothes rack outside of the wardrobe that colleges give us. I was like, oh, this girl got fashion for days. I'm talking jewelry, shoes, blazers, jeans, colorful, but in the most creative way. So I feel like you've always kind of been in your creative bag, but maybe now as an adult or even career-wise, you might be tapping in. Also, Shaina is hilarious. So don't let the sweet voice fool you. She is also a comedian on the side. But yeah, so Shaina, I just mentioned, I met her in college, and college was an interesting season of our lives. I feel like your 20s in general are just a very interesting season. A lot of growth happens in that season. It can also be quite ghetto. But I know for sure, throughout our time knowing each other, so 2008 to now, that's 15 years.
Yes.
Wow. That's 15 years.
Yes. A lot of seasons so old in right there. Now. Woo, child.
There's been some ups and downs, some lefts, some rights, some peaks, some valleys, but overall, we've been able to kind of move through seasons and stay in touch, which I'm really grateful for. And so in terms of seasons of life, before the podcast, I had just kind of been picking Shaina's brain about what she would want to talk about. And she said something that really resonated, which is basically about how we all go through seasons of life. And it's actually really interesting because, of course, we're shifting from summer to fall. Of course, we're shifting from being outside to now everyone being inside and warm and cozy, the holidays, but not just literal seasons. Some people are going through changes in their life, and we look at those as going from season to season. So anywho, before we get into all of that, I always ask guests this question, whether on the podcast or behind the scenes, but if you could title a book about your life, what would you title it?
I could title My life, um, I would entitle it pivoting internally, externally, and eternally.
Mm. Mm. I love alliteration, first of all. But I like that pivoting internally, externally, and eternally. I like that. Very cool. And is that because you feel like you've had to make different pivots in your life?
Absolutely. A lot of different seasons, and then knowing when that season is not necessarily over, but at least transitioning to a new one. It usually involves some
Mm-hmm.
kind of major pivot, and it could be
Yeah.
what's around me. It could be
Mm-hmm.
changes. I've had to make a lot of changes internally, and then
Mm-hmm.
also eternally. It's I know that there's a life for me after this life, right? And so anything
Mm-hmm.
that I do, I want to make sure that I'm honoring what is instructed of me to do here, so that I have an even more beautiful afterlife.
I know
I won't
that's
get too
right.
deep
Come
on y'all
on.
today. I won't preach, but
Listen, oh, we get deep because
oh,
listen,
okay.
I'll pass around the offering plate because y'all gonna get this sermon.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I love that though. So how would you describe either some or even the season now or a more impactful season of your life? How would you describe the seasons of your life?
Okay. I kind of want to just take you on a journey somewhat of like the different
Mm-hmm.
seasons that first come to mind. I know we talked about, um, how we met in college. So just
Mm-hmm.
early 20s, growing from a
Mm-hmm.
girl to a woman, that came
Mm-hmm.
with its own set of challenges and then set of lessons through college, through friendships, through relationships, through what did I want to do with my life. From age 6, I was like, I know I want to be a teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in retrospect, there's things like, well, I never considered other career opportunities, or
Yeah.
did I seek enough opportunities to network and make more friends than what I had, or meet new people in different places that could have maybe pivoted me in a different direction, for
Yeah.
anything like that. So early 20s was its own
Mm.
season. I think that was just a season of like identity, I'll call it.
Mm.
Um, Mid 20s, I was getting into my career. I'm like, okay, I know what I want to do career wise. I'm here. I have my degree. I've been hired straight out of grad school. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And I served in education. I'm always around kids, and I'm like this could be my everyday. Like, okay, now I'm focused on family. And so that season of my life was more so, um I guess, legacy. I was focused on the
Mm.
marriage part. I was focused on creating, a family of my own. And so I focused on that in my mid 20s. And then I get to my later 20s, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but probably figure it out later. But my later 20s involved a lot of different seasons in a very short amount of time, to be honest with you. Um, of course, navigating a relationship, navigating children, navigating a career that I had dreamed of since age 6. And
Yeah.
then I decided, you know what, it might be time for me to pivot career wise.
Mm.
I pivoted from the Hampton Roads area back to Richmond, closer to family. I mean, there were so many things that happened that changed in that one short time. It was just a matter of just figuring out what that season was. And I think that season I would title maybe flexibility. Because
Mm.
Lord knows before that, I was type A. Like, I know what my life is going to look like. It's going to be A, B, C, D, like very
Okay.
analytical, like I said earlier. But that taught me flexibility. Children in themselves, having children teaches you
I was
flexibility.
gonna say because children are like, you can think you controlling this if you want to. There's a
Mm-hmm.
new sheriff in town.
I'm like, I thought I was going to be on time to this today. Okay, 30 minutes late. We got spit up. We got diaper. Okay, we're
Okay.
going to rock with it, right? And
All
then
right.
also, like I said, moving to a familiar place, but wasn't ready to move to that place yet, necessarily. And so just learning how to navigate, okay, what is this like now? I've been gone 10 years. What is it like? I got to get used to my go-to spots. What do I want to do with my career? So a lot of flexibility required me to get through that season. I'll
Yeah.
say when the pandemic hit,
Ooh.
being formerly very, very much so extroverted. I'm sure you remember me as that, Tika.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic
Mm-hmm.
was a struggle for me because it forced me to be inside. It forced me to
Yeah.
be inside. It forced me to be away from the people that I truly cared about. It forced me to
Yeah.
not be able to go to a lot of the places that I wanted to go. And I understood the importance of that, health and
Right.
things like that. But it was hard because it was like my personality is not matching my reality. What do I do?
Mm.
So
Mm. That's
my
good. Let me write
personality
that
does
down.
not match my reality. And I would title that season, it was a season of reflection, because I had to sit at home with myself a lot. Who am I? What am I doing?
Yeah.
When I'm going through something, I can't just call up my girls and say, "Hey, let's meet at such and such," and take my mind off it. No, I have to sit at home. What does it look like
Yeah.
when I sit at home and I have to sit with whatever is bothering me? And so that was a season of reflection. But because of all that reflection, I realized, oh God, you really think highly of me, like where maybe relationships and whatnot had shifted at that time, and maybe I felt like I was at home with just myself and my two kids, but I also had God too. And there was a time in my life I felt like I had God, my two kids, and myself. And it was like the pandemic, of course, but also it allowed me to reconnect with Him. And I
Yeah.
started getting extremely more serious about what does my relationship with God look like as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
always went to church as a kid, even throughout college. One thing my mom would tell me that always convicted me, still to this day, you can go to the club Saturday night, you can go to church Sunday
Listen.
morning.
Okay.
Okay.
I always say that, and I be waking up like, Lord, if I smell like something I'm not supposed to smell like, forgive me.
Okay. And so that reconnection, not just with God, but then I had to use virtual platforms. I
Mm-hmm.
held some virtual events that you attended with me. So like
Mm-hmm.
Zoom became a thing, and FaceTime and texting and phone calls, where normally I meet up with these people in person, but now I'm having
Yeah.
to reconnect and find a way to stay connected while we are physically or socially distanced. And so that season was interesting for me, and becoming more, having to be in the house more, I became more introspective of things. And so I'm grateful for that season. And
Yeah.
after that season, things seemed like they were moving forward. It started going back outside when things died down, I guess you
Mm-hmm.
call it. Um,
Yeah.
but the main season that I think I can reflect on today is my season of isolation. It was just about a year ago. I was going through something very, very personal family wise. And while I missed being able to see my friends often or be able to finance certain things, I had to save my sanity, my time, my energy, and my finances for just making sure my family was good. So I
Yeah.
know a lot of my friends and family, they didn't see me for months, or they connect via phone, and I was just in a space where I would read it. I'm overwhelmed with what was going on. I may respond days or weeks later, and it wasn't to ignore anyone, but it was just one of those seasons where I needed to be by myself and figure out what was
Yeah.
going on so that I could come out of it a better person and impact the people around me. And someone I know, I truly, truly admire Sarah Jakes Roberts. One of her sermons
Yes.
was called Isolation Leads to Transformation. I kept
Mm.
listening to that. I'm like, Lord, I know I'm by myself right now, and it's best for me to kind of just focus on just my world. Granted, I care about what
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is going through, but right now, just to focus on my world, because I do believe that at the end of this, it's like a caterpillar to butterfly kind of story. I do believe at the end of this, you're going
Yes.
to transform me into something amazing. And so I had to stick with it. I really had to
Mm-hmm.
stick with it. The current season I'm in, I went through the isolation. I do believe I was transformed at the end of that. And then now I'm currently in like a season of stability. I'm enjoying things being
Come on,
good,
stability.
like good. I don't, there's things I want to move into, but for now I'm like, okay, kids good, parents good, careers good. Sometimes we have to stop,
Stay.
as they say, stop and smell the roses. Things are just good. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just looking ahead to what's next, what can I get, what can be better. I appreciate the fact that things are good. Um, and then also have the faith, of course, things are going to get better in due time. So those are my seasons up to today. And I think because of being able to be grateful for the stability that I've had, God has been preparing me for a season of what I would title as it comes. I do think it's coming, a season of elevation.
Okay, so y'all, I have been taking notes because I feel like as you were sharing each of those seasons, a lot of people can relate to each of those words, right? So you started out with identity. We were in our early 20s trying to figure out who am I? Or even whose am I, right? Where do I fit in? Where do I belong? Who do I want to be? So many things we had to figure out. And I'm like, first of all, the fact that y'all threw that on us in our late teens, early 20s is really irresponsible because we had, first of all, our brains weren't even fully developed. But anyway, then after college, you went into legacy. So that was the moment where you were like, okay, I'm focused on what is coming from me. What am I leaving here on earth? So I'm in my dream job. I have my kids. I'm preparing for family. I'm preparing for marriage. And then life happened where you had to then be flexible and pivot, where you were like, okay, I'm no longer in control. Clearly, my type A personality is not matching my reality. So I need to go ahead and switch it up. And then what else was after that? Reflection. You had a reflection season where you had to really sit with yourself. And a lot of people did during the pandemic. So I think that really resonates because that was hard. I'm sure you could even attest to it. Like, it's not easy to have to kind of look yourself in the mirror, literally or figuratively, and really take an audit of what you see. Because we couldn't be outside. We couldn't distract ourselves. We couldn't let the busyness be our excuse for us not paying attention to who we are, what we got going on. But even after the pandemic, you said isolation, and that was the one you were focusing on or you're reflecting on the most. Even like, is it today? Like, you're like, that isolation season was probably the most impactful. So that would probably be the chapter. You'd be like, if anybody picks up my book and happens to be just, reading the back cover, front cover, and just opens it, read Isolation. If you want to sit in the library floor and just say, you know what, I don't know what this book is about, but this chapter stands out to me. I'm gonna read Isolation. What is something that they would find out? What is Isolation, that chapter, about for you?
Something they would find out about me personally, or just something that, well, me personally,
Yeah.
they find out. I think just how passionate I am about family, for one,
Mm-hmm.
and healthy relationships where, I can focus on family, but then I had friends, literally had to stand on the shoulders of friends and, family members that acted as spiritual advisors. I think a pivot that happened in that season for me personally was the fact that I have been always this independent, I'm going to figure it out, I got this, I think I'm in control kind of person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that season, God was like, you'll get through this, but I don't want you to think you're getting through this by yourself. You need to call different people that will serve a different role or different resource in you to get through this season. And to be honest with you, I had the friends in the family, but I had a therapist. I had an attorney. Like, different people played different roles in what I was going through, because it was not something a season I was going to be able to get through by myself, even though it was built to, develop me. But God was like, I'm going to need you to start not only trusting me, but you're going to have to start trusting the people around you and delegate certain things. And then what they can learn about themselves during isolation, this kind of came to me as we were talking. We go through seasons, and I think I said earlier where we sometimes notice seasons have changed into another one because there's a major pivot. But I don't want anyone to think that you can't have circumstances that are not characteristic of your season. So I could have a very ugly season, right? My season of isolation was very ugly, but I was like killing it at work, like meetings with legislators, taking hands with people that make big decisions. In the season where I was struggling to eat, struggling to sleep, coming to work hours late, but that didn't show necessarily in my performance or when it was time for me to show up professionally. And on the flip side, I can have a really beautiful season. Like right now, I'm enjoying the season of stability. But earlier this year, I had some circumstances that were ugly. A physical health scare, where I had to
Mm-hmm.
get tests done and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And then
Mm-hmm.
an emotional health scare. My anxiety landed me in the ER. So
Mm-hmm.
while I'm in a very positive season, there are still circumstances that can humble me and remind me of what I've been through, or remind me to stay,
Yeah.
faithful to God and trusting that
Yeah.
He's going to get me through. So being able
Yeah.
to differentiate those two, I think they would also learn in the season of isolation. You can have a great season and awful circumstances that come up during that season, or vice versa.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I want to go back really quick because one thing you said, they almost parallel each other. During isolation, the season isolation, if anyone just hears the word isolation, you think, I'm lonely, I'm alone. It's nobody but me. Nobody but me, right? That's what we think of when we think isolation. But really, what was happening in your season of isolation is you said, like, yes, you had the friends that you could talk to, but God was like, there are going to be certain people that are almost going to be like vessels that you're going to have to be okay relying on, right? A therapist, an attorney. And a lot of times it's hard to be vulnerable when you're feeling your most vulnerable, if that makes sense. Like when you're isolated, you feel very vulnerable. It's almost like kind of being in the middle of an arena by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you said that was also the one where your circumstances didn't reflect your characteristics. And I love that because people, that old saying that people say like at church and everything, I don't look like what I'm going through. Like that is a testament to that, where sometimes we can be behind the scenes going through so much, but no one knows on the outside. And not because we're necessarily trying to hide it, but there's a internal stillness, right? Maybe there's a joy, maybe there's a certainty, maybe there is a groundedness in your faith in God, and you're like, even though everything looks like a hot mess right now, I
Mm-hmm.
know what God told me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna keep showing up. I'm gonna keep trusting. And I love that. Because a lot of people can relate to that, and isolation doesn't just, it's not just for the pandemic. Isolation can be for any season of our lives, right? I've heard people who are like newly married say they feel isolated. Someone who becomes a first time mom can feel isolated. Someone who's being a caregiver of their parents can feel really isolated. You can be just moving to a new city or town for a job and feel really isolated. Like it doesn't have to be like literally the external circumstance is isolating you. You could be just shifting and pivoting through different things in your life. And so I love that you shared that. And so in the isolation season, tell us a little bit about that experience, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Um, in the isolation season. So I was coming out of the reflection, reconnection season where, I'm like, okay, I'm figuring out who I am now and at this stage in my life. And I'm reconnecting with God. I'm reconnecting with friendships that I don't, it might have been hanging on by a thread. I'm like, no, I really value this person. Let me start reaching out more. Let me stay in touch more, and just rekindling family and, friend relationships. And so I will say it was, it caught me off guard, for one, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, things are good.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I now going into a season where the people that I just reconnected with, I'm not trying to ghost anybody, but I am trying to get my act together. And
Yeah.
so you said something just a few minutes ago about, like how we may not look like what we're going through. And
Mm-hmm.
so it made me think of how that season was sacred to me, meaning I
Mm-hmm.
knew the value of, if it didn't turn out how I desired it to, what would that
Yeah.
look like? Or if it did turn out how I desired it to, what would that look like? So it wasn't
Yeah.
that I was trying to keep it a secret from
Right.
the people
Right.
that I was isolating
Right.
from. It was just the fact that it was so sacred to me. And I knew my spirit at the time was so fragile. I only
Mm-hmm.
called on those specified people,
Mm-hmm.
again, with the vulnerability, because it's like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want everybody knowing my business. There's that. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's
Yeah.
also like, well, sometimes when too many people know your business, there's too many different opinions coming at you at a time where you're already like, what am I doing?
Exactly.
So I
Talk
did,
about it.
so I did try to focus on the support team I had at the time. Doesn't mean that there aren't other people in the stands wishing me well, but at the time it was my team and we were sitting on the bench together and this is what we had to do. So in my period of isolation or my season of isolation, again, work was going really well. All types of things were happening. I experienced death in the family. I experienced car accidents. So that was a financial change. Death in the family is that's also a financial change.
Huge.
That's also a change in family. Some family members got really close and some people started acting differently after that death in the family. What is going on? And I still had to force myself to be present in those moments, to be present for my parents that just lost a parent, to be present for, work when I'm without a car because I was in a car accident, all these types of things. But internally, I'm like, okay, if only y'all knew, I'm really going through something right now. I really wish you didn't expect me to have to show up. But at the same time, I honor the people, like I said, my team that was sitting with me on the bench. I honor the people that still showed up for me. They were going through their own stuff too. And so I had to realize like I am going to have to show up for people, even when it's hard for me to show up for myself, because, people that were helping me, they had their own marital things going on, starting new life, perhaps trying to get pregnant or things going on at work. And I can't be selfish like, well, true, you got your own stuff going on, but you said you were going to help me, so I need you to focus on me right now. I can't do that. And I can't also, play that other role for anyone else. Yes, I'm going through my stuff, but I also have committed to this friendship or relationship I have with you, and I want to show up for you. So it's just interesting that in isolation, it was like, I need to get my stuff together, but I looked around and I was like, but I can't just do it all by myself. So I started, like I said, delegating and using my resources. There were a lot of things during that season that caught me off guard, I will say.
Yeah.
And it caught me off guard. It made me, my first inkling was, woe is me. How am I going to get through this? God, if you love me, why are you letting these bad things happen to me? But then things kept happening that kept catching me off guard. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So don't keep asking him the same question. I had to literally reframe my thinking and restructure my faith and say, oh, God, you see so much in me that you're having me go through these experiences that, will groom me into a better person. Like you trust me with these experiences that might break somebody else, but you trust me with these experiences to come out on the other side. And whether or not this experience only betters me or it could better the people around me, you trust me with these circumstances of my season that are happening, for something greater on the end of this. And so I think that's another valuable lesson is to not think that if something is unideal or something is ugly, that it's meant to harm you. Maybe what I really think, and looking back, I'm like, maybe he tried to teach me these same lessons in my season of identity, in my season of legacy, in my season of flexibility. But I either wasn't listening or didn't know how to listen or wasn't being obedient. And so he did certain things in my season of isolation to really get my attention for me to really finally learn this lesson.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay, I'm going to take a pause because I hope everyone, I'm going to give y'all a second to go grab y'all notebooks and pens and write down a lot of what you just heard, because those were so many good nuggets. Okay, so I'm going to backpedal real quick. One thing you said about the season of isolation is, and you kind of use the same analogy my mom often uses, is she says, you're going to have people who are in the stands. You're going to have people who are on the sidelines. You're going to have people who are on the field with you. You need to know who those people are.
Amen.
And so the fact that you were like, of course there's people that you're like, hey, I'll reach out to them. It's cool. Acquaintances, casual friends, whatever. You had to be sure that you could trust the people with your vulnerability who were on the field with you. That was like a requirement, because in order for you to be able to trust them, you need to know that God is also speaking to them. You need to know that they also are aligned with their purpose and what they're going through in life. There's like a lot of requirements to be on the field with someone. Like I can't just walk onto, FedEx Field and be like, I'm now Washington Commander.
Right.
I need to try out. I need to condition. I
Mm-hmm.
need to be sure that this is my purpose in life. I'm not built like a football player. I
Mm-hmm.
might have broad shoulders, but your girl's not a linebacker. And so And so when it comes to like season of isolation, not only were you being really clear about who you needed to show up for you and who you wanted to let in, but you also were like, I want to make sure I can balance that and still show up for my people too. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is seeing past their nose in a way, right? Like sometimes we kind of see our circumstances and we think that, like you said, it's, and not to minimize, I don't want to minimize like the severity of anybody's circumstance, because what you're going through is valid and whatever you're experiencing is your truth. However, sometimes it's okay to pull back, zoom out. I tell clients often, I'm like, okay, can we zoom out for a second? What else around this circumstance is happening, even if it has nothing to do with the circumstance? So, like you said, you have friends who are going through things as well. And you were like, I want to support you too. And through doing that, one is reciprocity, but also a lot of people don't realize that being able to be kind to, and in a sense even serve someone else through the act of friendship, like friendship's a ministry. You also are getting poured into. You get something from that. So I think even if you didn't know it at the moment, like that was probably very impactful during that season to be able to give and take in those relationships. Because that's not easy. But then also you shared about friendship, and then, oh no, my mind's going blank. What'd you share after friendship? We talked about your friendships, and then right after that, my mind just went blank.
Friendships. Do you mean like my resources I was talking about? Who I relied on?
No.
I will say, if I may, another layer of vulnerability is those third parties, like those people that are neutral. They don't know me from Adam, and I have to call you, tell you all my business, for lack of better words, and then hope that you can help me get through this season. Because if we talk about like therapists, for example, I understand I'm the client of my therapist. I also have to understand they have a plethora of other clients. And so what's an emergency to me and what's urgent to me and what's important to me, being able to translate that to the person that's going to either represent me or help me on the field when I'm playing this game. At the same time, they're kind of like, but I see this a lot. Or, I have the tools, I went to school. I got all these letters behind my name for this reason, Shaina, like, let me help you kind of thing. I had to give, it wasn't like they're invalidating what I'm going through. It's just the fact that they see a need within me and they're like, well, God, like you said earlier, God has, assigned them my vessel to get through this. So God has equipped them, even though I'm currently not equipped to get through the season by myself. And so don't see it as they're invalidating what I'm going through. See it as, again, a resource. Like they have the tools, I have the need. We put them together, we can be successful. But it's hard. It is hard because I can call a friend, I can call a family member and kind of go over what I may be going through and then trust like it'll stay in our conversation like one-on-one. Now it depends on what kind of friends and family members you have. Do you have gossipers?
Okay,
Do
I'm
you
about to
have
say,
people
hold
that
on.
stir the pot? Again, calling the people I trust with this information. But then when it's like I'm online searching for, a long list of, so that can get overwhelming too. How do I know that I'm going to pick the person that's going to represent me well? How do I know I'm going to pick the person that's even going to give a darn about what I'm going through because they do see it so much? Or how do I know that, I'll spend all this time with them and then at the end, maybe we're not a good fit. And that happened with me, honestly. That happened with me, not only with my therapist, because I felt like I reached a plateau with her and it was time to move on, but also with an attorney. I had one attorney and I switched to another one when I felt like the first one was not serving me to the need that I needed to be met. So just making sure that you're picking the right fit for you as you are choosing these resources, especially when they're third party. They don't know you and they're going to know you for this time. And then after that, you could become a distant memory for them. But for you to remember them, you're like, no, well, that person got me through that season. I'm never going to forget that person. But it may not be the other way on the other side. So just being able to trust people with your vulnerability was huge, is huge, and it was huge for me.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a requirement for you to be able to connect with the person or the resource that you need for that season. Like without it, you may not have been able to get what you needed because maybe they would have just been giving you the resource in reflection to how much you gave them, right? In proportion to, that's what I wanted to say, in proportion to what you gave them. And so whether it is like someone who you're like a professional service or a friend, if you ask yourself, why does it feel like we just, this is not going anywhere? This is not deep. It's just like a surface level thing. You have to ask yourself too, like, okay, so then what is the level of vulnerability or what's the depth I'm going with them? And what am I expecting them to do with me? And of course, you don't go there on day one. So it takes time. You got to get to know somebody. In any circumstance, professional, friendship, romantic, even family. Just because we family don't mean we're relatives. I mean, I remember Ayanna Van Zant said, she's like, not everybody who's in your family is a relative, because in order to be a relative, we have to have a relationship.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, well. So, but yes, thank you for sharing that. How did you know when or how your season of like isolation was affecting you? Because did you know immediately, like, all right, I'm in this season? Or was it like, these are the signs, this is what's happening, or this is what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh, clearly this is something I need to pay attention to?
How did I know it was affecting me? It was a physiological response, like anxiety.
Yeah, you
anxiety
mentioned
was
that.
impacting my sleep. It was impacting just everyday conversations. Like when I tell you I was fragile, I was fragile. Like going to work, I was killing it, but at the same time, I'm like, if this email come through and it don't start with a good morning, and you're automatically like, I need you to do X, Y, Z, I'm already on defense mode. Like I was that fragile.
Yeah.
My anxiety was so bad. I was on edge. I was like, what else? Like, I was just like, anything else that may go wrong in my environment right now could just send me over. So it was anxiety impacting my sleep. It was impacting my appetite. I went through a period of stress eating, and then I went through a period of I wasn't hungry. It was like night and day. So that was impacting me. Again, just being able to have normal everyday conversations. Some of my coworkers, they could stop by and say, good morning, Shane, good morning. And then on other days, if I'm feeling it intense, or let's say I had something coming up pertaining to that goal that I had, and I knew I was isolating myself in order to attain that goal. Let's say, I had an appointment coming up, or I had a meeting coming up about that particular topic that was like causing me anxiety. Then on those days, they might walk by my office and I'm like, hey. And it wasn't to be fake. It wasn't to be,
not being cold.
Hot and cold. I'm just not in the space to give you a whole bunch of me right now because, and this is something else I wanted to say earlier. If I'm showing up with 20% of myself today and I give you 20% of myself, I'm giving you my 100. Like, I'm not going to show up my 100% every day. And if there's anybody I've learned that from, it's definitely my children as well. They're not feeling well. They didn't get enough sleep, or they're working towards a certain toy or something. And they're just like, well, I'm trying to get myself right, right to earn this, whatever. I have to give them space. Like, you know what? You didn't sleep well last night. You came in my room twice. So the next day when we're interacting with each other, I'm giving you a little bit more grace. And I feel like God does that. He's like, at least you're showing up. You could have stayed in bed. There's many days I wanted to stay in bed. He was like, but at least you're taking your to work. Okay. So if you take your to work and it's only 30%, you're giving your 30%, and I'm accounted as 100.
Exactly.
You're giving 30 out of 30. And so a lot of times I literally learned through my children on how God views me as his child.
Do you feel like it took motherhood for that to happen? Because maybe, like you said, there were all these seasons you went through. I mean, and your kids were a part of the legacy season, but there were other seasons you went through and you had to start to learn these lessons later in your 20s and early 30s. So, like, what is it What do you think it was about becoming a parent, or do you think it was becoming a parent that helped you to shift that mindset of who you are to God?
Yeah, that's a great question because I have a background with kids. I mean, I've always either volunteered or took student teaching, and then I was a teacher for almost 8 years. So I've always been around children, and I think their innocence and their imaginations and their energy are like so inspiring. And the people that are still in those fields, like, God bless you. You're there because you want to be there for sure.
Listen.
Because it's definitely a certain energy when you're around children and versus when you're around adults. And there are very energetic and bubbly adults, and I can be one of them most days. And then there's days, like I said, I show my 20 to 30%. But I do think for me, motherhood made that ability to give grace or to understand someone else's perspective. It made it even deeper for me because, like, I went home with these people. So it wasn't just I teach you and you go home to somebody else. And if your day at school didn't go well, your parents would deal with that. And then you show up the next day and you've slept and you've eaten breakfast. And now I have you in your tip top form again. It was like, well, if my child didn't have a good day at school, they bring that home. It's impacting our conversations at dinner. Do I need to instill some kind of, do I need to take tablet away? Do I need to take toy away? Like, why did we have that kind of day? And just being able to understand from their perspective, oh, well, this one thing happened in the morning and it kind of spiraled into the rest of my day. You know what? That happens to me.
Happens to adults all the
That
time.
happens to me. And so I do think motherhood took that understanding of extending more compassion than criticism. I think me personally growing up, I might have experienced criticism more than maybe like a child should have. And so I internalized that. And so through high school and college and everything else, it's like, Shaina, you're either going to be perfect or like, what are you doing?
Nothing.
Like, good enough.
Yeah.
And then that becomes self-doubt. That comes out into not only am I critiquing myself, but when I'm interacting with other people, I'm like nitpicking parts of them. And so I had to unlearn that. And motherhood taught me to unlearn that and to shift from maybe the conditional love and regard that I had been exposed to start exercising the unconditional love and regard that God gives me. Why wouldn't I give it to, my
someone
children and
else.
people around me?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So I'm hearing that motherhood, working with children in general, but it really, really, really took roots in motherhood in terms of offering that grace, offering that compassion, offering that empathy, and seeing things from another person's perspective. Because, like you said, what they're going through it can be huge to them, but to you, you're like, well, you coming home cutting up. But you have to say, oh, wait, this actually probably was a really big deal to them in that moment and did affect their day. Because if I get into traffic on my way to work, then I ain't in a good mood when I get there. Let me have my coffee first, Susan, before you talk to me. So I get that. I love that you said that. So, and then more criticism than compassion. Not only with other people, I think, but a lot of times we have to do that with ourselves too, because we can be our own worst critics. Like you said, we internalize that criticism and then it turns into that tape deck that's always running in our head of our self-talk. And it's like, well, where is this coming from? Is this me or is it somebody else? And not saying it's another person's voice, like, any type of psychotic features, but more so of like thoughts, right? Self-talk, the statements, the messages, the story we tell ourselves. And so now that you have kind of learned your lesson from that isolation period and you're in the stability, how are you preparing for your next season, which you said is elevation?
I do believe it's elevation. I think I've had to show that I am grateful for even my season of isolation. I am grateful for that. I'm grateful for the outcome. That's the more obvious part, and that was external. But like I said, with my title of my life, there were a lot of internal and eternal changes I also had to go through. I had to strengthen my faith, for one. It was, of course, walking by faith and not by sight. Like in front of me, I was like, God, I don't know how you're going to fix this. This is a mess. I look like I'm going to be defeated in this particular situation.
Mm.
And so I had to walk by faith. I was making sure I was pouring into myself a lot. And then also internally, one thing that I had, or I'm still trying to, I'm still trying to leave in that season of isolation is imposter syndrome. I will talk myself out of something as if, like today, even being on the podcast, what story do you have that other people need to hear? No. That was season of isolation. That was, I'm going through a lot. I don't necessarily want to share. Now in the season of stability, it's been more of a focus on my authenticity versus my, what I was going through.
Representative almost.
Yeah, like how fragile I was. Now it's like, well, I'm here. I need to honor my story more because you never know. Your test becomes your testimony, or your test becomes somebody else's testimony later on. All you need to do is share it. You're a vessel. And if I keep operating as a vessel, like understanding that whatever I do, whatever I say, it's going to impact the people around me in some kind of way. And so that's helped with my accountability. That has helped with being able to do things. Oh, an internal change. Apologizing. Accountability. Things I've had to learn to do because I am not perfect and I'm not going to be other perfect people. And so as far as preparing for this next season, I think I've shown God that I'm grateful that I went through the ugly season. I'm grateful for the season I'm in. Another word that comes to mind is discipline. He's had to see that, no, you're not just going to listen to me every Sunday that you go to church, or you're not going to just follow my instructions for 1 or 2 months until you get the job you've been praying for. Right. He was like, I need to see discipline. I need to see that you're committed, that this is not just something that you're doing for, what is it called? Temporary gratification. Like this is a change you're going to make permanently. And so showing him discipline in how I steward my finances, showing him discipline, showing him that I'm disciplined in how I set boundaries. Like, hold on, Shaina, you said you was going to block this person. Now you unblocking this person. You told me you would. Okay. So, and so just setting boundaries and sticking to them and establishing routines and sticking to them. I will tell y'all, I'm in bed before 9:00 on a Monday through Friday. Like I have no shame.
Girl, teach me your ways.
But it's discipline because I know that when I'm up at 5:30 the next morning, everybody, for the most part, gets my best self because I know that rest is an essential part of me being able to offer my best self. And so just showing discipline, or, God was like, you paid for that gym membership and you went 3 times last week. Then you told yourself you could take a week off. A week off turned into a month off, but now you're going 4 days in 1 week. Shaina, I need to see you. If you say you're going 3 times a week, I need to see the discipline. I need to see that it doesn't just change something that you immediately want, but you're changing your routine and you're changing your lifestyle to fit whatever you've asked me for. And they said, what is it? Summer bodies are made in the winter. So I need
to, I guess
winter is coming. I kind of need to, show him a little bit more discipline in that arena. But yeah, I think just being able to show that I'm grateful and show that I'm willing to put in the work and be obedient and show discipline so that when he provides me with more, and I say when, not if, when he provides me with more.
That's right, claim it.
I already have those routines and discipline in place that when he adds more to what I have, it will fall right in. It'll be integrated, and it won't have to involve a whole bunch of what do I do and do I fumble something that's so beautiful that you've given me. Like he's preparing he's preparing my hands to catch whatever is coming my way.
What's coming? I love that. I love that you said, so of course I told y'all earlier, I love alliteration. So you were like, it requires you to be authentic, to apologize, to take accountability, but it's also required boundaries, which is one of my favorite B words, and discipline / commitment. And I think that that's important to remember. I also want to add on to it and even encourage you, Shaina, and the listeners too, that as you are showing God, like, I'm grateful and I'm committed to this, know that he still honors your imperfection. So it doesn't mean you have to do it without fail. It doesn't mean you have to do it perfectly and unrelentingly. Yes, we try to, but God is the only one who is perfect. God is the only one who is unrelenting. God is the only one who is disciplined enough to never make a mistake. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to still give ourselves that grace, but don't give yourself a grace, so much grace that it turns into an excuse.
Mm.
That's the part that we have to remind ourselves of. Is I can't just be like, I'm giving myself grace this week. I'm gonna have, Chipotle every day. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Your doctor just told you that your blood pressure was high. Grace is now an excuse.
Right.
And it's gonna be your detriment.
Them
So
jalapenos. But no, Tika,
guacamole ain't that good. You gotta relax. No.
that just reminded me of something that I literally just had this conversation with someone 2 weeks ago, right after church. We were talking about the sermon, and then we were also talking about my friend was saying how he was giving up a habit. But he was like, but yeah, I mean, I made the commitment to give up the habit. But if I fall short, like, I'm going to just pray about it. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, it's a difference between saying you're taking a break from something or you're trying to reduce how much you're doing something. But as your friend, like, once you tell me you are giving up something as if your life is about to be without it, as your friend, and no, I can't hold you as accountable as God can. But what I told him was, and I'm telling myself this too, because anything I say, I need to internalize. I told him grace is not a punch card. It's not.
Oh,
It's not a punch card. It's not like, okay, God, I know I said right. I'm gonna give this up,
but one more time.
And it's not like God said, oh, here's your punch card. You get to get it punched 10 times before I take you seriously. No. If I've come to God and said, I'm laying this at your feet and I'm giving this up.
Leave it there.
And then you don't mentally prepare yourself to fail later on. Now, if it comes, then you repent and ask for forgiveness, all those things.
Yeah.
But you don't mentally tell yourself, well, yeah, I told him that on Monday, but we got this event coming up on Friday, just in case I do it. You're preparing yourself to almost sidestep the commitment. And I can make commitments to my kids, and I really don't like not making, not fulfilling my promises to them or family or friends. But there's something different about when I tell God I'm making a commitment, like that holds me to like, girl, you better do it. And don't tell me you're going to do it if you ain't going to do it.
Okay. Don't mean what you say and say what you mean.
No punch cards.
Ooh, that's good. Grace is not a punch card. Ooh, that's good. Because I feel like we do that sometimes. I'm guilty of it too, right? Where we kind of just like, ooh, I did that again, but it's okay. God love me. It's okay. I'll be all right. Love me. It's okay. It's okay. Everything's fine. It's like, not saying that God's ever going to be like, actually, I'm done with you. Bye. Right. He will never forsake you, but he's also not going to play with you.
Right.
So he going to be like, just like our parents be, sometimes he got to snatch us up. And like you said, in some of those seasons, God was like, you playing. Now I'm going to get your attention.
Now I'm going to get your attention.
So I love that grace is not a punch card. And if you say you're going to give something up and leave it at his feet, leave it there. Don't pick it back up. You don't put something in the trash and then take it back out and decide, you know what, actually, I'm going to use this. I'm sorry. This is no longer usable. This is trash. It no longer has any service to you. So if you're giving up something, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, spiritually, let it go. Leave it there. Trust me, it's much more on the other side of you leaving it there that's going to be better for you. So I love that. Okay, come on. We can ready for elevation. Moving on up. Yes. Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. So if there's one thing you want to leave with the listeners from your experiences through these seasons, I mean, first of all, I can't even say one thing because Shaina's already dropped a ton of gems. But if there's something you're just like, y'all have to know this, I want to leave you with this, what would that be?
I think when we think about literal seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, there are times where in the winter, that one time it was super warm on Christmas Day, and we're like, but wait, I'm in winter. Why are you showing me remnants of another season? Or in summertime, it's supposed to be warm. Why are you showing me remnants of, a storm or rain? What's going on? And I think what we all can remember is that even when you pivot from season to season, God can still have remnants of other seasons show up. And it can either be to see if you truly learned what you were supposed to learn in the season that it originated from, or it could just be to humble you. You could be in the middle of your summer, like everything is hot, everything's good, boom, 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 and he gives you a very, very chilly day. And that's not for your faith to change. That's not for you to feel like you have to leave that season or walk a different path to get away from the chilly weather. It's for him to humble you and say, hey, I am here for you, but you have to trust that I'm here for you for the good and the bad.
And
Same
the
thing
bad.
if you're going through your winter, things are cold, things are lonely, and you're like, well, wait, it's 80 degrees in December. What's going on? God's reminding you, yes, your season can be tough, but I'm going to still show you remnants of things that make you smile, things that bring you joy. I'm going to remind you of that time, you did a certain memory you hold on to because that time of year is so special to you, even though this time, that season in that particular year may not be ideal. And so just remember that God can create miracles in any season to redirect our experiences. It's definitely something that I think is important to take away from all that we've said today.
I know. If there's anything you take away, I hope you all heard that. Sit with it, breathe it in, and allow yourself to really just reflect. This has been so good, Shaina. Thank you so much. Y'all, I had no clue she was going to preach today, so make sure y'all get in line. It's offer time. But actually, it's gratitude time. We're going to shift into our segment called Gift. If you listen to the podcast, y'all know what this is. G is for gratitude or goal. The I is for intention. F is for faith or focus. And the T is for take action. And this is a gratitude practice, not something that you have to just do when you listen to the podcast. Maybe do it daily or weekly if you can. Gratitude is so important. It can shift your perspective. And so I will invite you, Shaina, to share your gift with us.
So G for gratitude. I'm grateful that God trusts me with these changes and experiences. And sticking with the G, my goal when I go through these pivots is to embrace them versus try to avoid them or overlook them. That's my goal. And I know more pivots will come. So my goal is to, when they show up, embrace them. Kind of like they say when you're surfing, ride the wave. God is my board. So if I stay on my board, I'm trusting that I can ride the wave. I for intention. My overall intention is to do good work. But my number, my top two intentions are to first honor God, to honor myself. Honoring God looks like extending compassion, patience, forgiveness. That's a big one. Selflessness. Because I am here as a vessel. And so if I'm honoring him, everybody else that falls under that umbrella is covered. I'm covered. My kids are covered. My parents are covered. My friends are covered because I'm extending what he wants me to give and not just giving from my flesh. And as far as honoring myself, that is honoring my boundaries. Like if I say this is what's in place, don't try to justify, For example, spinning the block is a little hard to do now that I've been through these other seasons. Okay,
I know that's right.
I got a different mindset.
Y'all can join the block party. Okay, it's over there.
Y'all can join the block party.
Freshmen are on the left.
Y'all can park around the corner, but this block,
okay.
But boundaries, healthy relationships, aligning with my career too. That's been another one. Not just taking what's out here or what just has the money. No. I'm at the point in my life, I'm like, if my spirit don't feel right, committing to the mission of whatever this career endeavor is, I don't feel right showing up every day for it. It does not feel authentic. And I'm currently relishing in my authenticity. So I can't just connect to something because it pays well. I can't just connect to something because it's work from home or it's up the street. I want to connect. I want to make sure, my spirit and my flesh are connected.
Aligned.
And then just, making wise decisions for myself. That impacts my children, that impacts other generations of my family. My focus is, of course, trusting God to elevate. I do think that's the next season. So I'm focusing on that. I have faith that is where I'm headed, just because Jeremiah 29:11 is always, always my absolute favorite scripture. about God's
For I
plans,
know the plans I have for you.
about
Just said the Lord,
prosperity.
plans to prosper you, to
Yes.
give you an expected end.
Yes.
Whew.
And so I think that was on my graduation cap. And if I had tattoos, it would
I
be
feel like it
tattooed on me by
was.
now. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like it
Right
was.
across my chest.
Okay.
But that's the one. That's the one that definitely helps me. When a pivot comes up, I'm like, remember,
Yeah.
there's my plans and God's
Mm-hmm.
plan. But I'm not
Mm-hmm.
Drake, so I'm gonna leave that one alone. All right.
Oh my gosh.
That's all. That's a throwback.
It's a throwback.
As far
And
as
then take
taking
action.
action,
Mm-hmm.
being in a season of stability, I've been able to strengthen relationships that were already like I maintained them, and now I'm focusing more on strengthening them.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to this person often, but let's strengthen them by spending time together or doing things collectively. Like, hey, if you have an idea, what can I do? My friend has a podcast. How can I support you? My friend wants to start this,
A
campaign or
business.
something for the
Yeah.
community. How can I show up? Can I be the one passing out name tags for you? Strengthen relationships by
Mm-hmm.
showing up for people, because I just came out of a season where I struggled with being able to show up for people, but they showed up for me. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to, like you said earlier, be reciprocal with that. Committing to a church, committing to, because I've been kind of visiting one for several months that I absolutely love, but being able to commit and serve on ministry, but then also outside of the church, just serving in the community in general. That's my action, especially with the holidays coming up. I am committed to doing something, especially feeding people for Thanksgiving, making sure I'm giving or donating things for Christmas. Those things just kind of remind me. I mean, I want to do that throughout the year, but the holidays definitely make those things that we have that we may take for granted. It just reminds me, like, what
A
can you
lot
do
more
to better
gratitude.
someone else's experience? That's my gift. It was long, but that's my gift.
It was perfect. No, thank you for
Okay.
sharing your gift. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I would say my gratitude is also for the fact that seasons are always temporary, meaning a season is always going to change. Just like the seasons on Earth, they have to change as long as the Earth is spinning on this axis and rotating around the sun. Seasons are going to change. And so you can trust in that, like you said, even if I'm in my winter, God can give me hope because he'll show me a remnants of summer. And I'll be like, I know I have memories of good times. So I know that they're going to come as well. So really, I'm grateful for that seasons are temporary. My intention is to be committed. I think, as you said, that you were talking about discipline, and I was like, yes, that takes commitment. Like, not only in relationships, but committed to what it is that I know I'm supposed to be doing in order to walk in my purpose. I feel like a lot of times, and especially as we mature, age-wise and in our spiritual life, you know the answer already. You know what it is. Commit to it. Sometimes the other things kind of look a little bit more appealing, or, we want to be lazy. We want to be chill. We want to just be like, I'll just stay in the background. And God's like, no, come to the front, please. Thank you. All right, right here. Now do what I said to do, and so being committed is something I want to make sure I continue to do. That's my intention. Be committed. Focus or faith. Focus or faith. Focus or faith. So my focus is going to be one thing is to really reflect on seasons I've come through, because I too am on the edge of a couple new seasons. Honestly, can multiple seasons occur at the same time? Because that be happening too on the lowest of keys. But I definitely feel like I'm about to enter into a new season or seasons. And so I need to do some reflection to just make sure I'm bringing the tools and the lessons that I had gathered from those seasons, and just make sure I can apply them to the future. And then my take action is you said it earlier, is to continue to work with my therapist, continue to talk to my support system, know that I don't have to do this alone. So I need to open my mouth. That is my take action. Speak, child. And so that's my gift as well. As you listen to that, I hope you all were encouraged, but also inspired to do your gratitude practice. Share your gift. All right. Now we're going to move into one of my favorites, and it's the last segment. It's called Vibe Tunes ATM. ATM stands for at the moment, so come on over and get what you need. These tunes don't have to be related to the topic of the podcast, but if they are, that's amazing. I love that alignment. But it could just be something that's been on your heart, a song that you've been enjoying lately. What's on the radio? What's on repeat on your iPad or your iPod? No one has iPods. What's on repeat on your Apple Music or Spotify? And so the playlist is on YouTube, as you all know, and I am going to have the Spotify and Apple Music playlist up for the end of the year. I am committing to that as well, y'all. But so yes, Shaina, what are some vibes that you have been tuning into, or some tunes you've been vibing to lately?
Okay. There's a few on repeat right now. For one, there is New Wine by Hillsong Worship. I heard it at the church I've been visiting for several months, and it just reminds me, you know, we can put time frames on things, we can put milestones on things, but as long as you're still breathing, God can continue to re-ferment you. I don't know if that's a word, but you know, I was wine before, and he's going to do a little something different for me to have a different flavor in this next season. So I do love that song. I listen to it. It opens up my heart. I listen to it on repeat. And that song reminds me of what I'm capable of being because of God. And then the next song that I also have on repeat is More Than Anything, my gratefulness for God. And a lot of people sing this song. I love the version by Anita Wilson. If you're the type that you love soulful solos, but then there's also the version by Lamar Campbell and the choir. So if you need that choir feel, whichever way, but there's a lot of people that have sing this song.
Choir.
Oh, the whole shebang. But that song reminds me of just God, you know everything already. I mean, it's not like I can keep anything from you. And you're just more than anything that, you know, regardless of what I ask you for, you're going to deliver plus extra, plus tax, as they say.
Come on.
And just being grateful, because I do believe the more grateful we show that we are, the more he's willing to bless us, because it's not like we're just taking, but we're able to give him praise, right? That reciprocity, and we're able to give him praise and then receive more. A friend recently sent me the How Will I Know, originally by Whitney Houston, which is the upbeat one. She sang about romantic love. But then as we were talking today, and my friend sent me the version by Sam Smith. Love Sam Smith. That one is slower, and it kind of, it's more like a Whitney's version is the dance mode kind of one. This one is like, you know, the one that opens up your spirit. And so when I was thinking about that, I think about, we ask ourselves that a lot, or I don't know about you, but I do. And like seasons where we are going through unideal things, it's like, God, how do I know you love me if you keep sending these things that are just shaking up my world? It's like we keep looking for measures or indicators for him to show that he loves us. And it's like we're almost singing this song during those seasons that aren't the best. It's like, how will I know you love me if I keep going through this? What else do I need to do for you to show me like I'm worth it and you're ready to move me into another season? So just talking today, I'm like, I love that song. It's on repeat because it's like slow, but I'm like, this kind of could also appeal to, you know, God's love.
Very relevant. Yeah.
But an honorable mention, always Essence by WizKid. It's a vibe. Always.
You don't even know nobody.
Don't care if I'm cleaning, brushing my teeth, getting dressed, driving down the road. I can still turn that on and never got played out.
It owned the summer. What did it own summer? Last summer. It owned summer 2022. Lord have mercy. But it was still a really good song.
We were back outside.
I love those. That's why we were just so happy to be outside. We didn't know what to do with ourselves. Lord, I love that. Okay, y'all. So we have some Sam Smith. We got some Anita Wilson. We got a choir, Lamar. We got Hillsong. This is very diverse. I love it. The playlist itself is very diverse. So this is right up our alley. All right, y'all. So I have two songs. One is called Me and You. It's by Thames. It's one of her newer songs, but I like it. It's slower. It's definitely about like, even though we're going through struggles in a relationship, know that it's just me and you. And as you were talking about today's podcast and seasons and just kind of relying on God, I'm like, sometimes these like R&B songs, I be singing to God too, low key. Is it blasphemy? No. But this lyric sometimes can feel very much like it's me and you, God. Like I want to make sure that even though I'm going through tough times, I look back and say, you know what? It's always been me and you. Everybody else is a bonus, but it's always been me and you. So I love that one. And then I heard this song. It was mentioned on another podcast. It's called Soul Lovers. I'm really into this very like deep neo soul where the singer has like a very like alto or even like very just soulful, sultry voice. It's just so soothing. And her name is called Soul Lovers by Xenia. It's either Manasseh or Manasseh, but I think she's not from here. She's not originally from North America. So those two songs I have really been loving. But my honorable mention, like Shaina said, is Tired by Todd Galberth. First of all, he recorded that song here in Richmond. But two, I feel like he actually recorded it at TLC. I'm not 100% sure. But two, it's talking about how God never gets tired of us. And even though, like you said, through the seasons that we go through, the times that we're like ignoring the lessons he's trying to teach us, or we're just kind of saying, no, God, I got it. I want to do it my own way. He never gets tired. He never gets tired. He's like, okay, Lord, my baby, come back. I'm not tired of you. We'll try again. And so that gives me hope. That gives me reassurance, that God will never get tired of you. Other people can grow tired. Other people, we've experienced it where other people just fall off, right? Or they decide that you're no longer worth a relationship or connection. God is always going to see us as worthy. And so he never grows tired. So those are my 3 songs for the Vibe Tunes ATM. All right, y'all. Well, Shaina, is there anything you wish I would have asked you or anything you feel like we left unturned, any stone unturned?
Ooh.
This has been really good.
We tackled a lot of stones, and thank you for appreciating my alliteration. I think it's still the teacher in me, so it just happens to be that way.
What I tell you, I say, act like you talking to your students. I love it. I love alliteration. It's how I remember things. Okay?
Yeah, me too. And I talk in 3 sometimes, but thank you for this invitation. Thank you for the opportunity just to dialogue about this.
Of course.
Honoring my story, I hope honors someone else's as they listen. Tika, I pray it honors yours. I have had an amazing time. I'm looking like, why are we done? Can we keep talking?
So on part 2 of
season.
No, but you are always welcome back. Trust me, you are welcome back. Yeah. Listen, come on back. We want to hear about elevation.
Elevation, yes. Give me some.
We want to hear about it.
Give God time. I'll be back with a report. I'll be back.
Because look, sometimes I'll be looking at my watch with God, but I'll let him take his time. Take your time, Lord. But that's good. All right. Yeah, you're always welcome back. But yes, I'm glad that you could come. I'm glad you were able to share. And thank you for sharing your story. Because yes, it did. It inspired me. It honored things that I've been through. Like you said, there's someone who's listening, even if it's just one, who resonates with it and can walk away or end this podcast knowing that there is something they can look forward to, which is that the season is going to change. So I love it. Well, you all, thank you so much for listening to Here We Are, the Mindful Podcast for Millennials. Let's connect. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Here We Are Pod or Here We Are Podcast with Teka. If you have a story that you want to share or you have feedback for us, you have feedback you want to share with Shaina about her story, email us at theherewepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, leave a comment, subscribe, do all the things. That helps the podcast get in front of those and align with those that it needs to. All right. Remember to breathe. In the now moments, know that your story can truly, truly, truly inspire someone else. So it's important that you share it. All right, y'all. Take care.